Senator from South Carolina.
Thank you very much. This is a debate worthy of the body, and I would like to give my belief about what we're doing here, my opinion. Senator Kaine has introduced a resolution that basically require President Trump to come to the Congress before any other military actions could be taken against the Islamic Republic of Iran. I think that would be a disaster for the country. You can only have one commander-in-chief, not 535. Mr. President, you've been in it. You've been right close into the face of the enemy, and you probably above all others know what warfare is like dealing with radical Islam, and applaud your service as a Navy SEAL. So it says in the Constitution, the President shall be Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militias of the several states when called into actual service in the United States. Well, they left out the Air Force because back then we didn't have one. Since the founding of this country, it's been understood that the Commander-in-Chief can act as the Commander-in-Chief to protect our nation from threats, that he is in charge of the military. He sits atop of he's the civilian in charge of the military, and it's his decision to use military force. It's Congress's decision to declare war. How many times do you think, Mr. President, we've declared war since the founding of our nation? I'll give you the answer. 5. Just think about all the military conflicts that have existed in the history of our country, and we've only declared war 5 times. The War of 1812, the Mexican-American War, Spanish-American War against Spain, World War I and World War II. So to my colleagues, if Congress has only declared war 5 times, does that mean all of these other military operations are illegal? No. That's ridiculous. Because we have the power to declare war, and us, the Congress only, doesn't mean the Commander-in-Chief can't be the Commander-in-Chief. This country cannot be put in a legal state of war unless the Congress decides to do that. But to suggest that means the Commander-in-Chief can't do anything without our approval makes all of us Commander-in-Chiefs. Do you think they had that in mind? Do you think they really meant for the Congress to be the Commander-in-Chief, not the Commander-in-Chief? The logic of this is as follows. Because we have the ability to declare war, therefore, the President can't act unless we agree. You've taken his power to be Commander-in-Chief away. The War Powers Act of 1973, referenced by Senator Sanders, is not worth, in my view, the paper it's written on. It was an effort by the Congress back then to limit President Nixon's involvement in the Vietnam War. The way you do that constitutionally is that Congress has the power of the purse. If we don't like what a president is doing in terms of military engagement, we can stop the funding for that engagement. But just think the chaos that would ensue in this country, that if there were not one commander-in-chief, but 535, and we had to sit down and talk among ourselves and debate as to whether or not we should go forward with the military operation in question. That would paralyze this country. And this leak of the Defense Intelligence Assessment tells you exactly what would happen if they brought this problem over to us to solve. So it's been clear to me that only 5 times in the history of the country have we declared war, and we've had hundreds of military operations that the founders never envisioned. The ability to declare war means the President of the United States, as Commander-in-Chief, cannot act unless we agree, because that makes us the Commander-in-Chief, and that's not what they were trying to do. They were trying to make sure the country could not go into a legal situation involving war without the body as a whole making that decision. But when it comes to how to use the military, when to use the military, we have a single person who does that. That's the Commander-in-Chief, and that person can be limited by Congress's ability to cut off funding for military operations they don't approve of. So the War Powers Act, I think from its very founding, was unconstitutional, but this is a case study of the chaos that would be created if we accepted their version, the proponents' version of this. That President Trump would have to come to the Congress as a whole before he decided to strike the next nuclear facility that maybe we don't know about, or there's some imminent threat to our troops in the region. That's just not practical, and that's not what the founders meant. They put a single person in charge of the military, and that was the President of the United States. They made sure that going to war was a group decision. And in this country, we've used that process 5 times in 250 years. So not only did President Trump have the constitutional authority to engage in Operation Midnight Hammer, it was an incredible success. If you look up obliterate in the dictionary, it means to destroy utterly and wipe out. These 3 facilities were destroyed utterly and they were wiped out. They were obliterated. Now that doesn't mean that the threat from Iran is over. The desire of the regime still exists, and we'll have to deal with Iran down the road. But this vote, I think we all need to vote no, because what we're doing here, if we don't watch it, is having 535 commanders in chief that would paralyze this country. But something maybe we can agree on very quickly. Since the attack, the Iranian regime has gone on a terror campaign against their own people. They've arrested at least 700 people for ties to Israel. There have dozens of people been hanged, with basically drug out of their houses and hanged. Iran turns to internal crackdown in wake of 12-day war. I will be doing a resolution condemning this regime's action. What they're doing is that they're trying to maintain power over their people after this attack. People in Iran are getting fed up with the Ayatollah. Instead of listening to the people and changing the behavior of the regime is engaged in a terror campaign of extrajudicial killings, imprisonment, and beatings to suppress the people. And I think this body and the civilized world should condemn what's going on in Iran right now. As to negotiations to solve the Iranian nuclear ambitions and to try to get a deal with Iran that we can all live with, count me in for that. But you got to remember, the people you're negotiating with, as you talk to them, are killing their own people to try to keep them in control. And I've got one idea. Before we negotiate with Iran, they need to say one thing. We don't like Israel, we don't agree with Israel, but we recognize the right of the state of Israel to exist. The policy of the Iranian regime is to destroy the state of Israel, purify Islam, and come after us, the infidels. Until they change that policy, nothing's really going to work. So what I want to hear before we sit down and talk to the Ayatollah and his henchmen is that for the first time ever since the founding of the Iranian regime, they recognize Israel's right to exist. Is that too much to ask? Finally, this is the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. 80 years ago, this past month, the Nazis surrendered, and one of the hallmarks of the Nazi regime was to kill all the Jews. 80 years later, we're having a debate about a regime that wants a nuclear weapon to kill all the Jews, and we're wondering what to do. You know what we should do? We should make sure they can't kill all the Jews. We could make sure that this homicidal maniac, the Ayatollah, who's a religious Nazi, is not allowed to get a nuclear weapon and rain havoc on the region and come after us. It's hard to believe that 80 years later we would be having this debate. What should we do? To my good friend Senator Sanders, your solution will lead to World War III. You will appease evil. And World War II happened because people like Senator Sanders did not stand up to Hitler. They did not choose wisely. They did not stop him when they could. And that's exactly what's going on now. Until this religious Nazi regime gives up their desire to destroy the state of Israel, to wreak havoc on the region, and to come after us, chanting death to America, then we should stand up to them. I'm not advocating invading Iran, but I am advocating being tough, no sanctions relief, and don't reward this behavior. Vote no to Senator Kane's proposal. Stand up for the Constitution as it's been implemented for over 250 years. And all of us pray for the Iranian people and for our friends in Israel that better days are ahead. But these better days only come with sacrifice. And as I speak, people in Iran are sacrificing because they just want to live free. I yield.